I I've been holding off on putting another podcast out. The front office podcast has taken a long hiatus because there's no basketball. What truth is there really to be explored if there's no basketball? Everything else is conjecture and nonsense in the shadow of this COVID-19 catastrophe. But Kyrie Irving has brought me out of the shadows. New York City, I want to say sorry for the lack of content that's been put out. Um, it wasn't on purpose. I honestly, when I stopped creating content for this show, it was more so because if there isn't basketball to discuss, what am I really telling you? You don't necessarily want to hear my daily quarantine diary. So I decided to let the show fall back a little bit, and then in that time, I've been able to go back into the lab, and a Twitter friend or a Twitter foe, depending on the topic, Sam hit me up and was like, I'm thinking about doing a pod. And I said, nah, fuck that. You come and do a pod with me. And so that, long story short, a lot of different machinations. I've been able to find another voice on for the show because I think the show could be a bigger conversation. I think the way we do the front office is different and honest. And I thought I could get a partner that can expand that concept and that format and talk about a little New York City basketball. Sam, introduce yourself and where you could be found and your basketball DNA, where it comes from.
Absolutely. And, Mr. Darbuz, I could not be more happy to be here. I mean, as someone who consumes a ton of NBA pods, I honestly, beyond following you on Twitter, because you're part of Nets Nation, I mean, I listened to you with Pooch and Evan Roberts on his podcast, and I was listening to it, and I was like, this guy's actually disagreeing and not saying the common net stuff that I can find anywhere. So obviously, one thing led to another. I'm happy that we've linked up. In terms of my basketball DNA, all right. So I've been living in New York now for 20 something years, and I remember driving to the Meadowlands, and then it became the Izod Center, whatever you want to call it, in Jersey. My dad's a Jersey guy. Mm-hmm. Grew up on Dr. J. And once they went to Newark, I remember in high school driving to Newark, was at D-Will's first game as a Net against, I believe it was the Suns. Big game from Anthony Morrow that day.
Yep.
And then followed them all and have followed them continuously to Brooklyn. I remember watching that Game 7 win against Toronto. When Pierce blocked Lowry. It was probably the most nervous I've ever been in a playoff series, which says a little bit about the state of the franchise, but it's all right. I remember my one favorite little anecdote is I remember being at I go to the NBA draft every year, and I remember I saw Bill Simmons in the hallway, and I asked him what he thought about the Pierce Garnett trade, and he told me he hated it. So for him ever saying he was a big fan of the trade and loved that he got all those Nets draft picks, he's not speaking the truth there. But look, I mean, I think one of the places where me and you disagree, which I'm excited about because I can't listen to another NBA podcast where the hosts agree on every single issue. But I think one of the places where me and you actually go our separate ways is I'm still holding out hope for this Kyrie and KD experiment. And I know that's a lot of stuff that you want to talk about. Kyrie and Twitter and breaking news basically go hand in hand at this point. So I mean, I'm curious to hear your thoughts about where we're headed and obviously everything going into Disney World.
I want to dedicate this pod to Kevin Durant. Somewhere in my twisted mind, I believe Kevin Durant is gonna download this pod and hear what I have to say. It's not that I hate Kyrie Irving. I love Kyrie Irving. If you listen to some early episodes of this very show, I waxed poetically about how Kyrie could possibly be the best New York City basketball player that I've ever seen. And then get tickled pink that eventually Kevin Durant is going to join him. Who's even better? Imagine that. But what has shown itself very recently is some of the warning signs that made me not like this idea of bringing two superstars in. And I'm looking at what's happening to the Nets, and you can't tell me you don't feel a little, yeah. I mean, Sam, speak honestly. You mean to tell me with everything that's going on, you feel 100% comfortable going, Kyrie, yeah, that's my guy.
So, I guess this is what I struggle with. So
Don't lie, Sam. Sam, this is not the show for the lies. Tell the truth.
It really is. It's such a gray area because the Kyrie experiment is already so different from like the glory Nets days that I know of, which was like the Kid, Martin, Jefferson, a little bit of Mutombo, some Lucius Harris, all that stuff. And while Marbury was always talking smack to Kid was just, minding his business and then coming in second in the MVP when he should have won, I believe,
right.
in 0-2. And Kyrie does a lot of talking, and it's not necessarily in a I'm the best point guard in the world sort of way like Marbury did, but he's constantly in the news, and it is something to adjust to. But I'm also at the point where like the guy's got a title, and all these title teams always have some type of stuff going on with them. They just do.
Sam, can we talk about some incidents? Let's talk about some incidents in specific with Kyrie. There was the incident where they wear this shirt or some kind of apparatus, like it's body tech, which measures heart rate, the speed that they're moving at, how much they move. It just collects the analytics of them on the court. Kyrie refused to put it on.
Nope.
Like, who refuses to put on the thing that's going to measure your performance? It's if being the best player you could possibly be is your goal. What is it that Big Brother is watching you? You someone's collecting your your data to make clones of you. I don't understand why he says no. For that specific thing, is that a crazy thing? Or is that just a superstar perfectly okay thing for you?
So this is the one thing and this is just from like listening to a lot of stuff and reading a bunch of stuff as I know you do. I know like him and his whole training regimen seems like something that's basically gotten him into hot water wherever he's gone. I know he's not a hot topic right now, or I know he's not a friend of the Nets at this point right now. But I mean, Kendrick Perkins has talked about their time together in Cleveland, and that Kyrie's like training regimen was just very different from what the Cavs training staff wanted them to do. So I feel like that almost had to have been something that the Nets knew they were getting into on that end. So yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely bizarre. But there's also other incidents that I know you're going to get to that definitely make me scratch my head. That's for sure.
Right. So okay. So that's one, right? Hard to defend that one. Would you agree?
Yeah. It's bizarre.
Okay. How about this one? They show up for the team photo. He shows up with a hat on, and he refuses to take the hat off for the team picture. In the history of team pictures, Sam, How many have you seen with somebody with a hat on?
Never.
Would it be fair to say that's what Kyrie did there was highly irregular?
I would definitely say so. But let me ask. I'm
Okay.
curious. I'm curious. So like because I think a lot of the Kyrie stuff is a combination from his perspective of a mixture of like player empowerment and pushing the boundaries. And I'm assuming me and you are on the same page. Where I end up being totally pro player on basically most of these issues. Do you think that Kyrie just kind of doesn't pick his battles the right way when he's doing what he's doing?
No, I mean I think I I guess it's not hard to tell, but I'd like to consider myself a proud black man. I'd like to consider myself someone who cares about social issues and cares about social justice. And in my professional career, I work towards economic justice initiatives. The problem with Kyrie is, and it's something that I can't truly answer and you can't truly answer, it's that the lines between I'm socially aware and I'm fully shit is so blurry.
Yeah.
You understand? Like the I don't have a problem with what other people's interpretation, the spirit of what Kyrie said is. I don't want to hear that. But let's say if he really is saying these things, he's saying them without a plan. He's saying them without an idea of what he's trying to achieve. What do you want from the owners? What's the end game? What's the goal? What you know? And then is it ethically fair to like demand anything of the owner? Because at the end of the day, people are asking you to go back to work. And they're not telling you that you can't use it as a platform to level up this important message and be active. Honestly, I feel like he's opted for doing nothing. And that's the only thing I can think, because truth be told, he hasn't said what he's going to do, what he wants, and where he wants to go forward. And it's like I said, it's a thin line, but there's a lot of gray area as well in between, being truly a social justice warrior. And I don't say that and a lot of people like to, down talk social justice warriors out there. I don't. I think people who take up the fight for social justice are special people, because they're giving a portion of their lives and their time for causes that doesn't at times affect them. And so I don't say that in that way. It's just you could be a social justice warrior or an asshole, and it's hard to tell between the two.
Yeah, yeah. I obviously agree with everything you just said, he is clearly someone who I think the thing that's tough about him is that he clearly has good intentions. It's just he wraps it in like a lot of different layers, and it doesn't help that he's also in the eyes of a lot of fans and a lot of execs and media people, he's just lost a lot of NBA credibility, which a lot of that stuff has to do with the whole like Earth is flat stuff, and which I'm sure I don't even know if that was part of your incident.
I was headed there. It's just that I think I heard in your voice that it was pretty clear that just everyday black colloquialisms. You would say, he's bugging. He is a weird cat, and sometimes it's like, all right, the weird cat sometimes could look really smart. He could sit there and start, talking about, some of his beliefs, but one of Kyrie's beliefs is that he's not a descendant of Africa. He believes that he comes from a Native American tribe, which could all well be possible. I'm not an anthropologist.